Hey guys, we just updated our character tier list and I get a lot of questions asked about what teams are really good, what are the replacements in case I wanna play a very good team but I don't have the best in slot characters, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna talk about all of this stuff one more time. We have of course a very crystal clear top 4 teams and this is the metagame. Though there are very good other teams as well, and I want to mention some of those teams besides the top 4 first. We're gonna start off with talking about the follow-up attack team. Before we hop in and cover the follow-up attack team, I wanna mention something really important here first. We will not use a character multiple times. That wouldn't make any sense and is honestly pretty fucking stupid, because if you are about to build teams, then you want to build multiple teams and you can only use a character in one team. We cannot just put Fatutu in every single team or play like Nautica Semmelweis with whatever the fuck we want because they clear on turn 2. You get the point. This is not how team building works. You can only use a character in one team and not switch things around as you like. I can already give you a little bit of an example right here with the follow-up attack team. Of course, there's this character that everyone got for free in the 2nd anniversary called Ulrich. He is like a solid, viable character as well for the follow-up attack team. But follow-up is not his archetype. This is not where Ulrich belongs, and therefore putting him in here as even like a substitute or a consideration would be complete nonsense, and that's what we're gonna refrain from. And we're gonna build teams that consists of their best in slots, and every character that is mentioned here can or should not be used in any other team. Okay, now let's talk about the actual follow-up team. Of course we have Ezio here. He can also be played, maybe even should be played in Poison, but the Poison archetype is pretty weak right now. Tuesday needs a Euphoria update. Jessica and Sotheby are not crushing it either, so it is more effective to actually play Ezio in a follow-up setup than it would be playing him in the Poison archetype. That is only the case, that is only true if you don't have the character Gio at Portrait 2. Gio is a character that pretty much, like right now how the meta shapes out, she needs her P2. Otherwise, if she does not have Portrait number 2 at least, she like kinda flushes down the drain. She's then not good enough anymore. That is also very important to know. So if you would have GU and Pickles at your disposal, then you play of course these two characters with Fatutu and Flutterpage. GU is a limited character, not everyone has her, specifically not at P2. That's why I put Ezio in here as a considerable choice for the main DPS part. Okay, but the true follow-up attack team, how it should be played, and the best in slots are GU, Pickles, Flutterpage and Fatutu. Now this team of course has a very big issue, because as I just said, GU is a limited character and not everyone has access to her. That is a gigantic issue, because if you don't have GU, you also can't play Pickles in this team. And that is detrimental, because Pickles is extremely important. His synergy, not only with GU, right, all the buffs that he provides, but also the synergy with the character Fatutu. Fatutu's follow-up attack makes it so that it cleanses all the debuffs from your own team. And how this has so beautiful synergy with Pickles is because Pickles follow-up attack, which triggers guaranteed every single round, takes away the buffs from the enemies. These two things combined give you a huge advantage and one of the best utilities you can have in the game, right? Of course, there are, like, the whole team synergizes beautiful with each other. You do not want to play this team without GU. First of all, because of Pickles. Because then you would lose the synergy that I just mentioned with Fatutu and Pickles. But Flutter Page is best in slot, like the best character to pair Flutter Page with as a main DPS is GU, because their synergy is out of control. They trigger each other every single round as much as they are allowed to. You know, Flutter Page can do like 3 follow-up attacks per turn or 4, and GU has the same mechanic attached to her. She can attack like 3 or 4 times every single turn, and they go back and forth when it comes to this. No other like team, no other formation, no other setup of characters here would accomplish that kind of thing, you know. That's why they are best in slot, because of their synergy. Cool. Now, yeah, GU is limited, not everyone has access to her. So what are you going to do then with Flutter Page and Fatutu? It becomes a little bit of a problem. That's why in my character tier list I said that Flutter Page is not what she is used to be anymore, because you are so reliant on having this P2 GU and Pickles. It's too crazy. And everywhere else, she's not gonna be the best in slot in anywhere, right? That's a huge problem. And then if you look at the substitutes, they are all either not that great, like Ezio, for example. Ezio can be played with Fatutu and Flutter Page as the main DPS. The reason why that is not so good in the first place is because Ezio does not have a viable sub DPS. You can't use Pickles if you don't play GU, because Ezio is from the Star playlist, not from the Mineral playlist. That would render Pickles useless. I just explained why this is a huge issue. And then the problem goes further. As I said, you don't have a sub DPS for Ezio at all. Who do you play? Cassandra, no, doesn't synergize with Fatutu or Flutter Page. You don't want to play this here. Then the other sub DPSs like Liang, we all know Liang was a must skip, is not that great of a character to begin with, and also needs at least P1, right? This is a limited character that was a must skip that pretty much no one has. And I have her, I play her, and I can tell you her damage output is pretty laughable. Her support capabilities are not that great either. She limits your rotations, especially if you don't have that P1, right? So that's an issue. Then 37 is another option, is of course heavily outdated, also needs a Euphoria update. Otherwise, yeah, she is on the squishier side. Her damage output is not that great either, so it will be lackluster playing this. You have Anionala, same problem as 37, is outdated, does not hold up anymore, is outclassed by way too many other characters, and the damage output will drastically reduce if you use a character like that. And that's the whole problem. Why this team is like pretty much unplayable without GU and Pickles. I would go as far and say that, right? And that's why, like, these characters as a whole, except for Fatutu, they struggle a little bit. Fatutu is at least versatile, she can be used, she is, even if we like really break it down, the best in slot for multiple teams. She's better than Medicine Pocket in the Bloodtithe team. She, yeah, will be better as a sustain than Ezra in the Dynamo team once Sharon releases, right? You don't want to use Kiparina Daya, but more onto that kind of thing later when we again hit the Dynamo archetype team. And that's about it. You can see the best in slot here. Those are the substitutes, and I told you everything about it that you need to know. So now let's move on to another honorable mention. But keep in mind that every single team in this game has a core. a core of a character or 2 characters, sometimes even more. And you have to have these characters to be able to play the team. You can already tell what is the core of this team here by the way I was talking about it. You cannot play a follow-up attack team without the combination of Flutterpage and Fatutu. If you miss just one of these 2 characters, you cannot play follow-up. That is the reality of the situation. Otherwise, like without Fatutu, I wouldn't even mention the archetype at all. It wouldn't exist, right? That's how much viability you would take out of a follow-up attack team if you don't have both Fatutu and Flutterpage, okay? So keep that in mind. Then next up we have a pretty brand new team, to be honest, with the rank up team. Here we have Marcus, Hisabeth, Mercuria and Via as the best in slots. The core of this team is the combination of Marcus and Via with their respective Euphoria updates that they received in the Assassin's Creed collaboration. Here the substitutes are Argus, but you have to keep in mind that you can use Argus right now if you, for example, don't have Hisabeth or maybe even Mercuria. That would be a little bit of winging it, but you have to keep in mind that it is really weak and drastically reduces the viability of the team if you would play it with Argus. You would have to wait for things to get better until she receives her Euphoria update in version 3.1. Keep that in mind. Then the only other viable substitute for the team would be Ananli, and she would then replace Mercuria. So you have Argus in place of Hisabeth and you have Ananli in place of Mercuria. And that's gonna be about it, right? Mercuria shines in this team because she starts off with a lot of Moxie, doesn't eat up a lot of AP to unlock her ultimate really fast, and her ultimate ranks up the incantations of her teammates, which is what this team is all about. You want to rank up your incantations to like rank 2 or 3, because depending on if they are rank 2 or rank 3, using those kinds of ranked up incantations grant stacks to Marcus that she desperately needs, and that makes her much stronger. That is the whole thing, the whole mechanic of this team, that Marcus's teammates rank up her incantations, and their own incantations, right? They rank up incantations in general that then can be used to provide Marcus with stacks, and those stacks allow Marcus to drastically increase her damage output. That is what this rank up team is, and therefore you need characters like Mercuria, like Ananli, or like Hisabeth also ranks up her own incantations and can use them AP free with his incantations. You know how this goes by now. And that's really about it. And the last honorable mention I want to make is the Poison team. Now this is the weakest of the 3 teams that are honorable mentions, but it is still a thing and I want to mention it. Of course, this consists of Willow, Tuesday, Jessica and Sotheby. Now the thing that you have to keep in mind is that the true best in slot here is actually Ezio. The problem with Ezio is that he is better off being played in the follow-up attack team. That is only true though if you don't have GU. So it depends on your account and like what roster you have available for yourself. If you have GU, then you can play Poison with Ezio. If you don't have GU, then you play Ezio in a follow-up team, right? So yeah, this team kind of has 2 viable main DPS characters, keep that in mind. And yeah, everything else is kind of self-explanatory, right? The core of this team are Tuesday in particular, and also Sotheby. Sotheby is the only healer that is viable to be played in a Poison team. So these 2 they make up the core. Then yeah, the main DPS is replaceable, as we just figured out. And the new Jessica Euphoria update is the best in slot in this team in general. But you can replace her if you wanted to with Kakania. You can do this in general. If you don't like Jessica, you don't have her, you don't want to upgrade her Euphoria, whatever the reason might be. Or you can use them as switch outs. If you need more damage, you play this team with Jessica. If you face content where Sotheby doesn't get the job done as the sustain and you need more sustainability, you then switch out Jessica and put in Kakania, which will drastically help your survivability. And that's gonna be about it, right? You will spread poison with Tuesday, with Sotheby and Jessica, and then you have either Ezio go nuts and deal more damage. His damage output depends on how many stacks of poison are on the enemy, so that's very good. Or if you use Willow as your main DPS, you convert these poison stacks into a stronger poison stack. And yeah, that's pretty much gonna be about that already. You have to have, if you want to play poison, you have to have Tuesday. If you don't have Tuesday, you cannot play poison. That is very, very important. The only viable healer here, the by far best in slot, is Sotheby. That is what you have to keep in mind. Then you need one of the two main DPS characters, and you want to have either Kakania or Jessica, right? And yeah, that's already gonna be about it. Now let's go and jump into the top 4 and cover the actual metagame. Alright, now let's jump into rank number 4 in the meta, which is the ultimate archetype team. And you can see already that yeah, this is a pretty bloated roster. There are a lot of characters that belong to this archetype. But yeah, first of all, remember that we are talking about version 3.1 here. That means we already got access to the Euphoria update for Gatian. He will drop his Euphoria update in version 3.0, and that makes him the true best in slot, and he's gonna be played together with Recoleta and Melania. Of course, those two are like what defines the archetype, so to speak, especially Melania. And yeah, that is already the core. If you want to play the ultimate archetype team, you need Melania with her Euphoria update unlocked. Otherwise, you cannot play the ultimate archetype team. Especially not with, like, together with Recoleta. There are a lot of substitutes here. Also in version 3.0, Centurion is gonna drop her Euphoria update. She can be played as the main as a main DPS in this team. You can use the for free 5-star character Buddy Fairchild as a main DPS in this team. Then in version 3.1 we will get the Euphoria update for A Knight. He can be played as a main DPS in this ultimate archetype team. Of course, they all fulfill kind of different roles. Yeah, Buddy Fairchild is a plant afflatus character, so if you would need a plant character to hit the afflatus advantage, he would be an option. Keep in mind though, he's a 5-star character and you don't really want to use him. His usage is only for the time being in the 2nd anniversary. If you don't have Noir or Recoleta, you can use Buddy Fairchild together with Melania, and yeah, then either like a low para or Mercuria or whatever you want. Name Day, you have him maybe, right? And then next version though, Buddy Fairchild is gonna become completely irrelevant. That's why I will delete him from this screen right here. Because again, this is about version 3.1, not about 2.8. And then we have access via a Euphoria banner to the characters Centurion and A Knight, who are both just much better. Okay, like Centurion's purpose is single target, main DPS from the Beast Afflatus, very strong, super viable, right? Second best in slot here for the ultimate archetype team. next to Recoleta. Then we have A Knight, who's from the Spirit Inflators. That is pretty irrelevant. A Knight's usage is, he's a speed farmer. If you are in a situation of, oh man, the artificial somnambulism, like the lucid scape or the limbo, it resets, it takes too much time, I can't be bothered, then you can completely speedrun this with A Knight. He will clear the stages faster than any other character in the game would. Except for Nautica, of course, but you know, that doesn't count at this point. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you have Recoleta, you definitely play Recoleta, no question about that. Then Melania is the core. Melania is irreplaceable. There's no way around her. Good. Like, especially if you play Recoleta, right? You play like Centurion, yeah, like we can make some arguments here that you play Muldir and Getian, or Muldir and Nameday, or like a combination of Muldir and Recoleta and Lopera, excuse me, right? Sure. But yeah, let's keep it at the true best in slot. That's Recoleta, that's Melania. Those two, like especially Melania again, is irreplaceable. Getian is a little bit of a different story. While, yeah, he's the undisputed king and the best in slot, no question about it, he is really replaceable. You can play Muldir in a slot, would be totally fine. Helps with AP +1, helps with the passion drain, but it's honestly barely needed, but she does that. She counterattacks with her ultimate. Problem is she is very AP heavy and very slow in her playstyle, so that's why Getian would take the cake over Muldir. But Muldir is still very viable. Even low para, 40% crit rate to your entire team, especially to low para, right? And to Recoleta, excuse me. That is pretty good. She's kind of AP friendly as well, gets access to her ultimate really quick, so definitely a good and viable choice there as well. Now, if you don't have low para, you don't have Muldir, you will not pull for Getian for whatever reason, but you have Nameday, right? That is like really stretching it. This situation will occur to like almost no one, but yeah, Nameday would also be a viable option because he provides ultimate might to Recoleta, although that is very underwhelming. But you know, people are asking me for possibilities, and here are the possibilities. Sure, like some teams, like the rank up team, they don't have as many options, right? You gotta have a very specific roster for that team. Follow-up has a lot of options, Ultimate has a lot of options that you can make work. The follow-up options, they are not really truly viable anymore, right? But here, for the Ultimate archetype team, their replacements, like the main DPS is replaced by Centurion, that is super viable, right? Getian can be replaced by Lopera or Muldir, like that is totally fine. For the follow-up team, replacing like Geo and Pickles, that is where things get really rough. You know, this is how the teams like differentiate themselves from each other. You might wonder, like, hey, what about the healer? Who's the best in slot healer here, right? Yeah, it is, of course, again, it will be Fatutu, right? Kiparina, sure, but yeah, you don't want to use Kiparina here, right? I mentioned that one earlier. So yeah, the Ultimate archetype team, what it boils down to, they do not have the healer for some reason. Don't ask me why. Send Bluepower an email, right? Don't do that. But yeah, you know, get the point. There is simply no sustain for this team available in the game yet. So put in whatever you have available, whatever you have at your disposal. Any sustain, any healer, any shielder, put him in, and yeah, you're gonna be fine for the time being. And that's it for the Ultimate archetype team for rank number 4 in the meta. And yeah, I mentioned a little bit of a gap earlier, even in the meta game. And here there is a little bit of a gap from this Ultimate team to what we will talk about next for rank number 3. There is quite a big gap between these two teams already. Keep that in mind when we move forward. Alright, rank number 3 is Impromptu. Yay, who's surprised? Before we're gonna talk about the Impromptu lineup though, I almost forgot to mention that the ultimate archetype team can also be played with Noir as the main DPS. Then you need Anan Lee in this team, and you pair these two with Melania and the sustain of your choice, and that is also gonna be a very good team. The sustain of your choice here is not really a sustain of your choice. It is, but the best in slot would be Sotheby, as she would provide additional debuffs, which then helps out Noir even more. But yeah, that's a little bit nitpicky. Just keep in mind, Noir, Anan Lee, Melania, and the sustain of your choice. That's another way to build the ultimate archetype team. Okay, now onto the Impromptu lineup. Of course, the best in slots here are Baccarola, Regulus, Aleph, and Kiparina. They, of course, the whole Impromptu team is pretty limited when it comes to how many characters there are for the team. Some teams, like the rank up team, are just like that. It is what it is. Now here things are, as all Impromptu is a little bit of an outlier when it comes to the stuff that we have to talk about, because here are the only substitute that is really here is Voyager, and Voyager should replace Regulus. You could replace Aleph with Matilda. That is a 5-star, and that is absolutely not what you want to do at all. So the core of this team is Kiparina, because she's the only sustain in the game that synergizes around the Impromptu mechanic called Inspiration, and that is what this team is all about. You cannot have another sustain in this team and expect it to work out. Nope. Then Aleph, as we just figured out, is barely replaceable, because the only option, quote unquote, would be Matilda, right? But here this is the point where it gets a little bit tricky. So the true core, if you want to play Impromptu and you ask yourself, what character do I have to have, then the answer is Kiparina. Now let me point something out about the other characters, because it is always the case. Like, hey, I have all of these characters here, but I don't have Aleph. What am I gonna do, right? Do I now play Matilda in that slot, which is something that I do not want to? No, you don't, right? You then play Voyager and Regulus. That is also something that is not optimal, because Regulus and Voyager are part of the team for the exact very same reason, and to double down on this mechanic, that doesn't make any sense. Still, Voyager is of course a better choice than Matilda, simply because of the inspiration that you accumulate and the whole damage output. You know, Voyager is so much better as a character than Matilda is, that you of course go for Voyager, right? Now the scenario occurs that, a general rule of thumb in this game is that if you want to build a team, then you have to have the main DPS, right? That is pretty self-explanatory, especially for a team that only has one viable main DPS character like Baccarola, you know? In the follow-up team you can use Ezio instead of Gio. In the ultimate archetype team you have a gazillion different characters that you can use as the main DPS, you know? Impromptu is different though, it only has Baccarola. So what if you have Regulus, you have Aleph, and you have Kiparina? Does that mean you can't now play Impromptu just because you don't have Baccarola? No, that is not what it means, right? Because you can slot in Matilda. No, I'm kidding. You would of course then again just use Voyager, right? Then again you play Voyager and Regulus together with Aleph. It is gonna work, right? It is not optimal, but sometimes you have to wing it a little bit. This is still gonna be a very strong team regardless. And yeah, you should of course refrain from putting Matilda into this team. That is something that you don't want. But again, your options are limited, and if that is what you would have to do, then sure. You need Kiparina, and you should have at least one of Regulus or Voyager. You know what I mean? Regulus is available now with a Euphoria update in version 2.8 in the Euphoria banner, so you can grab her there. In the past we had countless chances to get our hands onto Voyager, so yeah, the odds are very, very high that you have one, or you now go for maybe even both, right? If you already have Voyager but you don't have Regulus, you miss Aleph, right? You have now an option to like fill this Impromptu team up and play it, because it is really, really fucking strong, you know what I mean? And we even have in the Dive 401 is kinda catered towards this Impromptu team, so it would be quite beneficial for you if you want to beat the Dive, which is a just for fun thing, right? But if you wanna beat it, then having your hands or having the Impromptu team at your disposal comes in very, very handy. And again, it is a very, very strong team. In general, there's a reason why this is number 3. This is the 3rd best team in the entire game, and I think that speaks for itself. Alright, let's now move on to rank number 2. Alright, then rank number 2 is Dynamo. The best in slot here are Lucy, Ulrich, Sharon, who releases in version 3.0, it's a must-have, and then Ezra. Now the true core of this team here in version 3.1 is Sharon. Sharon makes this team not only complete but more. We will talk about this in just a second. And he is so important, I can't stress it enough. He makes this team catch up to speed. He makes this team complete, and he makes his team future-proof. So that is an absolute must-pull character. Keep that in mind, please. I'm not saying that right now in version 2.8, where we instead of Sharon use Mercuria if we have her, that the team is weak or something. No, this is even right now still with this roster the 2nd best team in the entire game. Sure, right? But yeah, again, to make this future proof and to have the best in slot, get your hands onto Sharon. Cool. Now, when we have Sharon, then Ezra will maintain her best or his best in slot in the team, because he is the only sustain in the game that accumulates dynamos. Dynamos need to be funneled into the surging field, not to level it up anymore, because Sharon does take care of this. But the more dynamo you funnel into this surging field, even if it is at level 3, the longer Sharon will channel his ultimate. That's why Ezra is still the best in slot in the Dynamo archetype team, even after Sharon. Now this becomes interesting, because you have to be, you would want to be a little bit versatile, as Ezra might not get the job done when it comes to sustaining the team, like by his shields, right? He's very, very good, but in order for him to be very, very good, he is not AP friendly. This could become a problem in the future, and Sharon makes him replaceable with other characters. Now, what characters would you replace him with? There is where Kiparina comes in. Keep in mind, we do not mention characters multiple times, so this is only true if you do not play Dynamo. If you do not play Impromptu, excuse me. If you don't play Impromptu, but for some weird reason you have Kiparina, then you can and should seriously consider replacing Ezra with Kiparina. Because yeah, you lose the 20 dynamos per turn. It's not too much of a big deal anymore, because Sharon levels the pulsing field up anyways. And Kiparina has better shields than Ezra, and those shields are 100% AP friendly. She does not need any AP to provide these shields, with which makes his team then more consistent, right? Needless to explain. And these shields also give a little bit of tiny crit rate, which helps, right? So that's about that. Another option that is really good, like you can slot in any sustain character that you want here to replace Ezra with, if you want to replace him in the first place. Of course, you know by now, Fatutu is always a top tier choice, no matter what team you are looking at, right? Cool. Then we gotta talk about this team a little bit further. Let's talk about it in the context of the second anniversary and version 2.8, in which Sharon doesn't exist yet. Then, as I said earlier, we're gonna use Mercuria. Is there any... we have to have... like Ezra then here in that case is a must-have, right? You need the Dynamo production from Ezra when Sharon is not here yet. Okay. So the only replaceable slot here is that very support slot. And the best in slot is Mercuria. Now, excuse me, you can replace Mercuria, of course, with a character like Muldir. If you pulled for Muldir for some reason, you can play her in Dynamo. It's not going to be as good as Mercuria, but it is definitely another viable choice. Okay, now we have to move a little bit further into version 3.1, because that is where another Dynamo character releases, which is Corvus. Now Corvus is not going to be a best in slot in his team by any means, but she is an option for new players that weren't here, that didn't play the game yet in the second anniversary. They came after, so they could not get their hands onto Lucy no matter whatever they would have done. This is where Corvus then can join the team. Now, Corvus needs Sharon, otherwise this character is unplayable. That is a little bit of an issue, because even new players that need to get a main DPS as fast as possible, Corvus is really bad because they don't have Sharon. You have to play the game from version 3.0 onwards, and you have to like get your hands onto Sharon no matter what, right? Very, very important to know that. Corvus does not function if the pulsing field is not on level 3 constantly, and Sharon is the only character in the game that provides her with that. So these two are partners in crime. And there is another very, very interesting thing about this duo, because both of them deal mental damage. That leads to Ezra, the possibility arrives that Ezra could now be replaced with Via, who is another very, very good sustain character. It's an option, it's not a must-do, right? But with two mental damage characters in Via's team, that is what she needs to be viable. And Corvus and Sharon, this duo together, opens up the door to play Via in this team. Okay, cool. Now I have talked about everything concerning the Dynamo archetype team. So keep in mind, Corvus does not replace Lucy, and Ezra still maintains the best in slot even after Sharon joins the game. I think those two informations here are the most important ones to get across. And with all of that out of the way, let's move on to the undisputed king and the by far best team in the entire game. And the number one best team in the game is of course Bloodtithe, right? Who would have guessed? It's mainly because Nautica is the best character in the entire fucking game. So this team consists, the best in slots here are Nautica, Semmelweis, Sentinel and Robushka. The substitutes are Eternity, who would take the slot from Sentinel as the support in his team and is totally fine in that slot. And you can replace Robushka by playing Medicine Pocket. This is how this team is played right now. But we are talking about version 3.1. Keep that in mind. That is very important context. Otherwise we wouldn't talk about Robushka and even Sentinel, right? Okay, and yeah, there's not much to say about this team. I can explain why exactly Robushka and Sentinel are better than Eternity and Medicine Pocket. That is very, very simple. Both of these characters here, Sentinel and Robushka, they have the very specific mechanic of filling the Bloodtithe more than you would do anyways by the normal means. The normal means, or the normal mean, is that you fill the Bloodtithe thanks to Nautica and Semmelweis whenever your team or a teammate would take damage, would lose HP, so to speak, right? Then whenever your team loses HP, the Bloodtithe is filled. That is the ability of Nautica and Semmelweis. Okay, now Eternity is really good because not only does she provide a whole plethora of good buffs to your team, if your team is around 50% or is 50% or lower when it comes to their current HP. Additionally, she makes it so she is able to deal damage to her entire team. That is extremely beneficial because you want to be able to deal damage to yourself, to your team, because that would make you fill the Bloodtithe more, right? Cool. Then Medicine Pocket helps a lot and makes it extremely convenient. First of all, he uses up 0 AP. You can use 1 AP with him or with her, whatever it is. Then 2, provide a debuff that increases your critical hit rate and critical damage. That is also very, very beneficial. The main reason why you would play Medicine Pocket though is because he makes it convenient to play around the 50% HP threshold with this team, because only if your team is below 50% HP does he start healing. If your team is above 50% HP, then he would provide shields instead of healing. That makes it super, super convenient and very relaxing to actually play this team to its maximum efficiency. Now, if you would replace this Medicine Pocket with Robushka, you would make it less convenient to play this team to its maximum efficiency, because Robushka heals passively, right? You have no control over how much Robushka heals. That means you will pretty much always be above 50%. That is a little bit of a bummer. She makes up for this bummer more than enough because she has this ability that the Bloodtithe is filled more, right? And it is filled so much more, in fact, that Nautica will deal even more damage on turn 2, and yet makes the team more consistent and of course more future proof. That is why I highly recommend for everyone who plays Bloodtithe, which should be everyone, right, to either pull for Sentinel or Robushka, so that your Bloodtithe team has one of the characters that has a mechanic specifically catered towards increasing the Bloodtithe more than by the normal means, right? I have to really put emphasis on it, and I want to stress it a little bit. Is it 100% needed? Is any of these two characters an absolute must pull? You need to have him no matter? No, that is not the case. Even without these two, Nautica will still end every single battle in the game on turn 2 anyways. It is just here for convenience and yeah, to make this team even more future-proof, which is kind of crazy, than it already is, right? That's all I'm saying here. Then, why is Sentinel better than Eternity? That is much more easy to explain, because Sentinel simply outclasses Eternity in everything that she does. She deals way more damage, she is way more AP friendly, she fills the Bloodtithe way more, you know what I mean? Everything about Sentinel is better compared to Eternity. But then again, you don't need Sentinel. Eternity is fine, right? But yeah, again, like the damage you see, let me explain this a little bit more, just to make it clear. The additional damage output that Sentinel provides over Eternity doesn't matter, because Nautica is here for the damage output, and Nautica is like an absolute berserker. You don't need any more damage for anything, right? You already have established true power. Sentinel is a complete overkill and a waste of Unilocks that you might even take the risk not getting your hands onto the must-pull Sharon, because Sentinel is released in such a bummer situation right after the 2nd anniversary, where we had to pull for a gazillion different characters, and we will probably go broke into version 3.0. And then Sentinel comes, right? And after Sentinel we have a must pull with Sharon, as I explained earlier. So that's why I recommend highly to not pull for Sentinel and stick with Eternity. Eternity does everything perfectly fine. She is way underrated and much better than people give her credit for in this team. That's why you should Sentinel, right? Should skip Sentinel. But keep in mind, as I said earlier, one of these two characters, of Sentinel or Robushka, should be part of your Bloodtithe team. It's not a must-have, but I would recommend it, right? I already explained the reasons. Is to fill the Bloodtithe, more convenient. So that's why I would rather wait for Robushka and pull for her, and skip Sentinel to pull for Sharon, you know? And the character after Robushka is pretty much a must skip for everyone with Chorus. So you know how getting Robushka into your team compared to Sentinel is much more convenient when it comes to resource management and how to invest in your Unilocks. That's about it. Again, keep in mind that it's not a must-have. You can keep playing this team just like this with Medicine Pocket and Eternity, and you will be 100% fine, no issue. This will still stay and be the best team in the game, no matter what, okay? And that's about the video, guys. I hope that helped. If you have any questions, feel free to join my Discord server, ping me there, and then we can talk things out and see like what your account looks and how you should go about things, or maybe you have any questions that I can answer you, like feel free. So yeah, that's it for the video. Until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day. Don't forget to join the Discord server, link is in the description down below, and we love this game.